You're listening to a Soul One podcast.
Hello. We took the month of August off from You Had Me at Skip It. This was something that I actually did with all my podcasts. I took some time off, and we're just kind of ramping back up to returning. This is not going to be a full episode of You Had Me at Skip It. I just wanted to say hello to everybody, and that we will indeed be back to our regularly scheduled podcast releases as of next week. So next week, Thursday, September 18th, 2025, we will be back with new episodes. We've got a couple different things planned. First, we're going to do a fun summer recap episode where we're going to go through and talk about all the movies we saw. In August, I saw Superman Returns Weapons, which was a big hit. We're going to talk all about that, catching up with myself and Taylor. And then the week after, we've got Father Quirk returning to the show for some drive-in movie fun conversations. We'll have more on that when we talk about that a little bit next week. But I just wanted to say hello to all the You Had Me at Skip It fans. We are back next week. This week, I thought we would just put out an episode to let people know that we are returning, as well as the other podcasts that we do are coming back as well. Some of you may know and may not know, but we also have a Star Trek podcast that myself and Tyler Vance are doing called Yesterday's Star Trek, where each week we actually talk about the new Star Trek that's on right now, Strange New Worlds and other shows like that, and compare it to old Trek, because we're both old Trek fans. And of course, as many listeners know, I hate new Star Trek. So it's a really fun podcast. That's what you're going to hear next. I've got a special return episode of Yesterday's Star Trek for all of you. Take that as a little preview. If you like what you hear, you can follow that podcast. You can get it anywhere that you get your podcasts. But if you just want to get back to our regularly scheduled movie conversations, Taylor and I will be back next week for all new episodes of You Had Me at Skip It starting September 18th. In the meantime, we hope that everybody had a wonderful summer. We're really looking forward to talking to you about movies again. So if you do have any fan questions you want to send in, be sure to email that to Mike, M-I-K-E, at soul1arts.ca. That's SOLARTS.ca. So that's just Mike at soul1arts.ca. Send in your fan questions. Follow us on social media. Direct message us there as well. And we are back as of next week. Go see some movies.
Mike.
Tyler.
Query for you.
Okay.
So we just came back from a long vacation.
Oh, yeah.
What novel series would you use as a template for a holodeck-based vacation?
It has to be a series?
I would say there needs to be enough material for the holodeck to be able to create a new adventure out of the existing stuff. So like enough mass material. Maybe it's like a singular book that spawned like a much larger universe or something like that, but there needs to be enough material that it's like, oh yeah, this is like it can make up a new thing for you.
See, the thing is, you said vacation, so that assumes fun times and relaxation. Because my initial instinct is to either answer that with Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, or Game of Thrones, like Song of Ice and Fire. But that's not fun. I mean, that's not relaxing. It'd be a lot of fun, but it would not be relaxing times in any of those.
Like, I feel like Harry Potter could be. Like, it's one of those things where they're like, oh, we have so much school. I'm like, your school is literally magic. Like, what are you talking about?
Amazing.
Stop complaining.
The school sounds great. That sounds wonderful. Well, I think with Harry Potter, it has the best chance of like, you put all the books in and it's going to generate a world. It's going to give you enough fun day-to-day adventure and then give you like a mystery or a big event, and it doesn't get
Mm,
darker till later. So I feel like
yeah.
you could preface the holodeck with, okay, like here's all the stuff, but like you're going to create an adventure, like it is his own book, so it's going to have its own somewhat happy ending that has to kind of be a part of it. So I feel like you have your best chance to relax. If you throw in all of Game of Thrones, that could be high stress for your vacation.
Yeah, like I don't think I was thinking about like different book series, and Harry Potter definitely came to mind for me. I threw out Game of Thrones immediately because I was just like, that is not going to be a fun time. Even like in terms of I wanted a more like action adventure thing, it's just too dark and dank of a world really for me to get any sort of enjoyment out of. I had thought kind of like maybe I really love Charles Dickens books.
Mm.
It's just kind of like a fun, it's like a time period with this wonderful cartoonish gloss over it that I think I could really get behind. Lots of fun characters, really like very easy to follow but enjoyable mysteries. So like that might be my choice. But now that you mention it, like I think Harry Potter would be a lot of fun. It would be a good time for sure.
I think it's your best option for this. Is like you can get some chill time. Like
Hmm.
you could sit on the grounds at Hogwarts overlooking the lake on like a spring turning summer day or early fall when it's not too cold, and kind of get a vacation in there. You go to Hagrid's hut, like you could like do things, watch some Quidditch. It's just when the bad things go down, they are going to go down at some point in time. But I feel like that's the one that, for everything that we see out of the holodeck, whether it be the Dixon Hill adventures
Hmm.
or Data being Sherlock Holmes, I think mysteries on the holodeck are always what do the best and seem to be what people want out of the
Hmm.
holodeck. So I feel like Harry Potter is generally, every book is a mystery. Like
Yeah.
who did this and what's going on? So I feel like you could easily adapt Harry Potter to, now here's a new adventure of you at Hogwarts as a student, and like you have to kind of see what happens, or a teacher, or whatever you want to play. um, I think it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I read the books for the first time when my daughter was born, because when you have a lump of a human being around that you need to feed constantly every 3 hours, there's not much to do. So I'm like, I'm just going to read Harry Potter to her. I think that'll be fun. And we got through all 7 books, and I had never read them before. And I was amazed by how much like the first 3 books, especially books 2 and 3, are just like really well oiled mysteries. Like it's just
Mm-hmm.
everything that's brought up is an intricate part of this very like intense machine that is all driven towards like a final payoff and resolution. Once you get into books like 4 and onwards, there's a lot of world building, a lot of characterization, which is also great, but really
Yeah,
like muddles the mystery in a way. So I think if I was going to do this, I might just give the first 3 Harry Potter books of like, this is
yeah.
your template. Create me like a fun adventure that's like this, that focuses like maybe like 40% on schoolwork, 60% on adventure, and let's just see what we can get done.
I think it'd be cool to be a teacher too,
Oh,
like
that'd be fun.
to be like, okay, like I want to teach history of magic and just make up a bunch of stuff. Because I always thought it would be fun. You're a parent, so you won't appreciate this, but I think it would be fun to be a parent and teach your child something you know is incorrect, and wait and see how long it takes them to figure out it's not real. Like
I
that,
have
something
I have
ridiculous.
definitely
Like,
considered I have
yeah,
considered doing this myself.
yeah, like fire comes from wood, like something
Yep.
so ridiculous that is clearly not true, and just wait and see how long, like just see how much you can ruin their lives. Like I think that would be kind of cool.
Well, it is even funny sometimes. Like I remember just learning in like physics in like high school, the fact that like cold doesn't exist. Like physically, there is no such thing as cold. There is heat and there's lack of heat. And in my head, I think just the way I'd always interpreted it is just like something gives off heat or something gives off cold. And even like that shift, which was not something that my parents deliberately mistaught or anything like that, but just that shift was like, this is like a big thing for me. And I wonder, like, what other things have I just been walking around just thinking wrong about for this time? And
Yeah,
it's a little disconcerting when it happens to you when you're like, I've been walking around with false information for a good long time.
yeah, it's fantastic. I think that would be, to me, the best part of being a parent.
Anyway, this is yesterday's Star Trek. And welcome back to yesterday's Star Trek, where Star Trek's past and present collide with potentially reality-changing ramifications. I am your co-host, Tyler Vance, joined as always by the man most likely to leave you hanging after you scream, up high, Mike Shepard. How you doing today?
Yeah, I absolutely object to high fives
You see, a
they're
lot of these, I'm just
so
kind of like
useless.
pulling stuff out as like this is the thing I assume about you, and it's fun the number of times that I've been vindicated.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a more useless gesture. Um, I one of the things that I thought a lot about coming back after this long hiatus was that I'm really excited to talk Star Trek. But then I remembered, oh, but I
What
gotta
Star Trek you
watch.
were talking?
Yeah, I gotta watch 6 episodes of Strange New Worlds. I can't just come back and talk about Star Trek. Like I don't think maybe you do, but I don't know if listeners understand the lack of work it takes to do this show when it's Deep Space Nine that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like as we've been going kind of back and forth from Strange New Worlds to Deep Space Nine, there's almost no work for me that goes in to doing an episode where we talk about Deep Space Nine. I don't even have to watch the episodes. I do because I love it, but I don't have to because that's how much I've seen it. I know them off by heart. But for Strange New Worlds, it is a marathon to do this episode. And I was telling you off air, and I'll tell this story here. We're recording really the day before this comes out. I spent most of today watching these 6 episodes. Like I had to binge them in a row because I completely ran out of time. I forgot we were back. And I'm like, I have 6 episodes I have to watch. I'm just going to binge them. You know what's a horrible binge? Strange New Worlds. It's just a terrible, terrible binge. You're going to have to remind me what happened in each episode. They're all one episode to me.
In
It's
your
just,
head, it's just
yeah,
one big smush of the.
strung together, nonsensical nonsense. Way, way too much Nurse Chapel for my liking. Not enough Ortegas until the last episode, which
Yep.
which I'm like that was the only one right at the end of my binge. Finished it 10 minutes before joining you here, and that's like I waited all day for this. Like 6 hours later, and I finally get like a taste of it, and that's Strange New Worlds for you. Here's 9 episodes of television. You're gonna like one of them.
Yeah, well, it was definitely like I spread them out a little bit more because I'm a rational human being, and I didn't want to do that. And so I watched like 2 at a time or something like that. And the weirdest night of my last week was definitely the night that I watched 4.5 Vulcans and Terrarium back to back.
How
The shift.
how can you put that in a show where you how can you sit here as a showrunner and say we're going to put these two back to back?
Like it's a weird thing because I've been a defender of Strange New Worlds for a lot of different reasons, and in the past you brought up the tonal shifts between episodes. That
Yeah.
there's like comedic ones and there's non-comedic ones, and I've like been like like the original Star Trek was like that. You have like your piece of the action, which is like very goofy and a little bit over the top, but then you also have like your Doomsday Machine, your Private Little War, like the more serious, grounded episodes. I'm like, it can't be that different. And then when I got to those 2 episodes, like 4.5 Vulcans and Terrarium, I'm like, these don't even seem like the same characters in these 2 episodes. Like the way they're interacting, like Pike, the way he's behaving in like kind of the 3, like if you do look at what is Starfleet, 4.5 Vulcans, and Terrarium, like he's a completely different person in each of them. And I'm like, even in the original series when Kirk was doing his like mafioso stuff, he still felt like the same guy. And I feel like that's the real thing is like it's one thing to have different tones between episodes, but that needs to feel like it still belongs to the same world, and it really doesn't sometimes.
Well, and then of course there's the episode where it was so obvious he was a hologram from the beginning, but we'll get into that.
We'll get into that very quickly. It was just the first one we have to talk about.
Yeah, but yeah, I agree with you. The characters aren't the same. Like
No.
You can shift tone, and I agree with you. I mean, Next Gen did that. Lots of shows do that. In order to survive, you have to be able to do different types of episodes. I agree.
Yeah.
This is like going from slapstick comedy to drama. It doesn't work when the characters are different people each episode. That whatever the characters need to be to suit the plot, that's who they are, and I don't think that works.
Well, and that feels very much like Family Guy or something like that, right? Like where like the characters aren't characters; they're tools to get the joke. And in this case, sometimes the characters feel like tools for the plot. or like whatever the writer is deciding to do this
Yeah.
time is like, and
Yeah.
that's unfortunate.
Like Peter
Um,
Griffin is as stupid as he needs to be to make it work, right?
Exactly. Like sometimes he's very like smart and has astute observations because he needs to like that's what he's needed to be for the joke, and other times he's like just like a functionally not existent. Like he's
yeah.
just not there at all. And it doesn't matter because that's a ridiculous show that is not, like no one's intending to have any sort of like deep philosophical conversations about, not like a sci-fi show carrying on a proud legacy as episode 4 proudly asserts that it is carrying on a proud legacy of Star Trek. And I was
Oh.
listening to it, I'm like, I this is a hard pill to swallow.
This was the first episode of coming back where it's like, okay, we watched the first 3 episodes, meh, not great, but I throw on today the 4th one as I kicked off my day, and I'm just like, all I could think to myself is 5 more after this.
Yep.
Five more of this.
So let's
5
jump
more
in.
of these things.
But not that thing, and that's kind of the good and the bad of it, because the great thing is that about it being so incredibly intensely episodic is that you have absolutely no idea what you're going to get time to time. And so here, when we came into a space adventure hour, like directed by Jonathan Frakes, mind you, I was like at like way back. I remember like, when we looked at the episode titles, I thought to myself, "Oh, that could be interesting. Maybe that one will be more of a kind of like like picaresque. Everything's a little bit different, like vignette based thing. That kind of sounds fun." But instead, it's actually more of like the most meta I think I've seen Star Trek be outside of Lower Decks. It's an episode where La'an is being charged with testing this new fancy technology, the holodeck. They have these type of things on like space stations, but the power to run them was thought to be too massive for a starship to like power. They now have a prototype that they're looking for her to put through the ringer, and so she is testing out a murder mystery. And in the classic, I asked the computer for an enemy that could defeat Data, we have like a wonderful moment of the computer was a little too literal. And there's a lot of things I don't like about this episode, and there's some things I do. And the thing that I absolutely love is Pike's basic takeaway at the end. He's like, bury this thing deep in the ocean because it's like too
Yeah.
dangerous. And I'm like, that's been my take on the holodeck since the beginning.
Well, and again, I think you see in Next Generation the sort of positives and negatives of what holodeck programs do. Like you actually see, I think one of my favorite Worf episodes is a Fistful of Datas, where Worf and his son go to the holodeck in a sort of Western adventure. And that, aside from, yes, the holodeck malfunctions, but in terms of like the point of the holodeck prior to that malfunction, the program was running properly. And it was, Worf's son Alexander trying to create this thing where him and his dad could bond over something. And you see like, oh, like you understand the good use of what all that can be. It's used quite well on Voyager as like an escape. But then, of course, episodes like this and other episodes where people get kind of stuck on the holodeck. There's a fantastic episode of Deep Space Nine that takes place on the holosuite. Called Our Man Bashir. Fantastic episode. Won't tell you any more about it, but we'll get there. But yeah, I mean, I to pull a quote from one of my favorite movies, School of Rock, to sum up this episode, I'll sum it up with, it's tacky and I hate it.
Well, like, so it begins with this like very hammy, over the top, obvious riff on like the original series, where the character in this, like the actor who plays like the new James T. Kirk, is playing a version, like a hyped up version of William Shatner's Kirk, and Chapel is there with like a mini skirt that's like all the way up to there, and all these characters are just kind of like fumbling around a cheap set, and I'm like looking at this and I'm like, this is an incredibly lazy send up of the original series. Like this is like the type of thing that is like what it's being made fun of over and over again. And, in some ways I think it works for the episode because they're, that's the kind of the idea, right? Is that but then there's a middle part when La'an is, she's tasked with doing this murder mystery in the holosuite. They had this idea that there's this show in the 1960s, so like a producer has died, and they're trying to figure out who of the cast or the crew or something like that could be responsible. And the agent at one point goes on this really long rant about how they shouldn't cancel the show because of, can you imagine the possibility? It could have been a thing of generations of generation. I'm like, this thing? like we saw an episode, it was terrible. I'm like, it's like, that's not what the original series was.
No,
That's what the lampoons of it were. And so
Sure.
to try and like have your cake of lampooning but then eat it too of like,
Yeah.
but wasn't it amazing? And I'm like, no. Like, if this is the show, it needs to be canceled.
It missed its own point. Like that's
Yeah.
what it felt like. It's like you're kind of missing your own point about what your own shows can do and have done. Like that, yeah, like you put it well. Like I think what they were doing was this over dramatized representation of what Star Trek was that has been the parody of what Star Trek is, but is not what that show is about.
Mhm.
And they kind of were trying to make this point in a meta way where it's like, well, we're actually talking about Star Trek here. But it's like, but you're not, because in the world of the show, you're talking about this really terrible sci-fi show that has nothing
Yeah.
to do with anything. And also, you're on the holodeck. Like, who cares? Like, so, it was, yeah, the premise at the beginning, I was interested in.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of a cool way to set up, like, to test the holodeck. Made total sense that Lalonde would do it. Like, all this made sense. They're on this mission that they want to test this thing. They don't really need a tactical officers for it. She's done all these simulations forever. She's the best person to test this new technology. Why, answering that question in a subtle way, why is it 5-year missions? Because our scientists say you can't survive being away from home that long.
Yep.
So by the holodeck's a way to extend space travel even further, emissions. I love that. All that stuff's great. They just, once again, cannot, like, they can't land. Like, I've never seen, like, they just can't stick a landing to save themselves. It's so odd. I just thought this episode was so corny and over the top and not funny or interesting, or, you know, sometimes you get to see actors in a show like this play different roles and that kind of excites you. Not, this didn't excite me. I didn't care for anything that was going on.
No, I think my favorite parts of the episode were probably Scotty and Uhura, like having like their beginnings of a friendship, where Scotty's like basically trying to do this all on his own, and the fun conceit is that the holodeck is requiring so much energy that it's actually pulling energy from the Enterprise's vital functions, and that when the holodeck goes rogue and decides that it's not going to let people shut it down, it's really actually becoming a detriment to the ship. And so I thought that was really fun and cool, and I liked the fact that Uhura was trying to help Scotty out on this front. And everything they do with like the mystery of like Scotty being able to like talk to her as a hologram, which I don't know how that happened. He also tells her information that isn't necessary for her to know because she already knew everything. And then, as you said, like the massive twist at the end is that the Spock that came with her was been a hologram. It's like hologram the whole time, which I called the moment that he was in the holosuite.
Immediately, the minute she walked in to the holodeck, I'm like, he's 100% hologram.
He's a hologram. But I think the most outrageous part of all of this is that at the very end, they now start a romance between La'an and Spock.
What?
And I'm like,
okay, did I miss something? Because that seemed to come out of nowhere for me. Okay.
No. So it's like, the end of what's it, the one with the wedding? What was that called? The Wedding Bell Blues. There was like, like they were dancing together and there was a little hint that something might happen there. But I remember thinking to myself, surely they just hung up one of the best sci-fi characters in the last 2 seasons in a love triangle, the laziest of all plot devices. Surely they're not going to jump straight from that and shoving Spock into another romantic plot. Like, that can't be where we're going with this.
You don't know how high they can fly, Tyler. You don't understand what they can
do. When they kissed at the end, I was just like, I rolled my eyes so hard that I gave myself a headache. Like, it was just, this is so bad.
I'm pretty sure at the end of this episode, I sat there just kind of comatose. And the only thing I thought was like, I got 5 more. Like, I can't have a big reaction. I have 5 more of these.
I just picture you like just whispering it to yourself in this kind of like imploring way to the walls. Like, I have 5 more. What am I going to do? I have 5 more.
What a waste of a day. to do this. What a waste of a day.
Well, continuing in your wasted day, the next episode was Through the Lens of Time. I think we can agree an improvement over the predecessor. This one is once again Corby's back on the Enterprise. We have this instance where there's some sort of like he has some theory that like the reason why every race is obsessed with immortality is because there's some lost technology of quantum instability that allowed some ancient race to be able to live effectively forever. And he thinks he's found a site that could hold this mystery. And so, like, while this is all happening, we of course have to have the like semi tension, not really, between Chapel and Corby, and then La'an and Spock, who are on this away mission as well. And then Uhura and the documentarian, whose name is like Erica's brother, Beto.
Is that his name?
Like,
Yeah.
I think so. They're also there. And then also the random nurse guy that replaced is like Chapel, who was
Yes.
in like one episode. He shows up and he's there too. And I'm like, okay, well, that'll be interesting to see what they do with this character. The answer what they do with this character is that he like blows something up and takes out his eyes very quickly and then becomes possessed by like a parallel dimension being and gets murdered at the very end.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh my god, like this is like one of those scenarios where I'm just kind of like the like what is this show that we just murdered this guy in cold blood? Like why did you literally create a little puppy dog character to murder 4 episodes later?
And can I just note this came after an episode where we had a over satirical like look at Star Trek that took place on the holodeck.
Yeah.
This is the next episode, which like
Yeah.
yes, I agree with you, an improvement, but also I don't even want to call it a tonal shift, a leap into a
Yeah.
new like I think I'm watching a completely new television series.
Yeah, it's effectively like, the reason why we call it like, whiplash or something like that is it's like Newton's first law of motion, and it's like a object in motion will stay in motion, meaning if you're heading one direction, you're going to keep moving at that exact same velocity, that same direction, until a force is applied that will change your direction and you'll accelerate in that direction. In this case, it's like you were driving one way and then the laws of the universe shifted and suddenly the car was moving the exact opposite 180 degrees, and the force impacted on your body is just like would be enough to like rip your internal organs apart. It's insane how big of a shift this is between those 2 episodes.
That does describe my day very accurately.
You were just breaking Newton's first law over and over and over again and constantly being bamboozled for it.
Yeah, I've been, doing a pretty good job of things like intermediate fasting and eating somewhat healthy and getting some exercise and just
Love it.
Making smart decisions until today, where I ate taco dip, binged ate chocolate, which I'm allergic to, and then shoved a Subway sub down my throat, and all of these things was just to survive today. Like I took about 27 steps backwards, and I feel disgusting, and I blame Star Trek really.
I was gonna say that I think when they put up a bunch of like quotes from critics on like the box or the poster for different things, one of the worst ones they could put up is this episode made me like quit healthy living in order to survive it. I'm like, that's not great.
It and I have to say it did.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can go back. I don't know if I have the willpower to go back, and it's Star Trek's fault. So thank you, Star Trek, for ruining what was a healthy 15 minutes of my life.
Well, in this episode, did you at least enjoy the like kind of like mystery element of like the different rooms, the interdimensionality of it? Did you enjoy the kind of I would say like this kind of like interesting concept about this interdimensional being of what it is something ancient and old, like a malevolence so ancient and old that even Gorn DNA suppressed inside a human carrier reacted to it and on an instinctual level.
Yeah, I
Did
kind of
any of
like
that
that.
resonate?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
did.
I thought that was cool.
I do think that was cool, and I don't I I don't want to take away from the fact that it did some good things, and that's been, I think, our kind of our, if we were to make one sentence about Strange
The
New Worlds, it's
thesis.
that, yeah, like our thesis is it has good ideas at its
Yeah.
core. It's just the execution doesn't always land for us, and I
Hmm.
think for me, I liked that aspect of it, and definitely I'll agree with you. I found this episode more watchable and interesting than the first
Hmm.
of this particular binge. And I did like moments like that are where they nail it, where it's like the Gorn instinct thing within this person reacts to this thing. That's cool. I like it
Yeah.
going, you know, characters that carry emotional scars that don't actually go away and come up in ways like this. I love that kind of stuff, even if
Yeah.
it is on like a biological level. So no, that worked for me for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I enjoyed that component to it, and as I always enjoy a Star Trek episode that can end with a little bit of like a creepy, like if this ever were to happen, and then it just lets you to kind of sit there and think about it, like the idea that somewhere out there is this vault filled with these creatures that if they were ever to break out, they could, in theory, like destroy everything very quickly, and like that is a creepy
Mm-hmm.
thought. It's unfortunate that the person who's speaking that at the end is the engineer that I have neglected somewhat intentionally to learn her name. This is
Yeah,
the first
I
of
don't know
two
her name.
episodes where they give her the emotional speech button at the end, and I'm like, this is not working. Like whatever you want this character to make me feel, joy, like sadness, sorrow, creepiness, any of that stuff, none of it comes through. All I feel when this character's speaking is rage, and I'm like, that's not great that you have two episodes in a row where you're like pretty much hanging the emotional thread at the end of the episode on this very flimsy and aggravating hook. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I don't want any more of her in my episodes, please.
Yeah, I haven't learned her name either. Her voice is just so annoying and horrible. I don't understand what this person's doing.
Like, I
Both
think
the
this
actor
actress.
and
Do you remember Scrooged, the Bill Murray, like kind of Charles Dickens Christmas Carol like riff?
yeah,
Yeah, so I think she is like the ghost of like the Christmas present in that. And in like a comedic role where she's like supposed to be kind of like a little kooky and batty and out of her head, at that time, it worked pretty well. I have no idea what she's doing with this character. Like, I just apparently she's like they're really like pushing on that idea that like, yeah, she was probably stoned out of her mind in the 1960s, and that's really the only major character beat that I've picked up from her over the past 5 episodes.
yeah, it's just not enough. Like
No.
it's just not enough. Like
She's
I
one of those
don't.
people that thinks being high is a personality. I'm like, it's not. It's
It's
really not.
not. It's really not enough to be even remotely interesting. Like I'm I'm so confused as to who this person is and how this person as a character made it on this show.
Yeah, I know that you hated Hemmer, who was the last engineer that we had. I'm very impressed that they managed to outdo him in terms of a character that both you and I dislike. As like Hemmer
Yeah.
didn't like, that was fine, whatever. He was around. He was like him and Aurora had some good stuff. So I'm like, sure, but this character I can't get on board with. I just can't.
No, thank you.
No, no. Next episode 6, the Salat who ate his tail. This is an interesting episode because we shift
Uh,
perspectives. We're mostly with James T. Kirk on the Farragut for this one, where his captain has been incapacitated through this massive scavenger ship that destroyed a planet and damaged the Farragut almost seemingly beyond repair. The Enterprise comes to intervene, but then is captured, and now like James Kirk, with just conveniently all of the characters that will eventually be on the original series Enterprise, is like beam over to the Farragut. So he's got Spock, Uhura, Chapel, and Scotty, and they are the kind of now the dream team that has to try and find a way to save the Enterprise from this massive ship, despite the fact that their ship is broken seemingly beyond repair. Um,
yeah.
good premise. Good
I
premise.
yeah, I actually liked this episode.
Yeah.
Not, as far as I could. But I did enjoy this episode for the most part, and I think you know the way they set up the premise, which I thought was really good. I thought the conflicts that they had, and seeing kind of Kirk struggling with being in the captain's chair and everything that meant for him, and kind of having to relate with this crew, all worked for me. Like I
Hmm.
thought that they did that very well. And again, the best compliment I seem to be able to give to Strange New Worlds is where it feels like an adult show written by adults, was
Hmm.
kind of this. It's like, this is how adults have conflicts as opposed to like children, which is what
Yep.
we seem to be normally getting. So I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was well done. I think that this actor who plays Kirk, is kind of growing on me
Me
every time
too.
we see him a little bit more. And I like seeing him interact with the younger versions of all these characters we know, because everyone does a good job of behaving like they don't really know each other yet or trust each
Hmm.
other yet, which works.
Yeah, it was definitely like, because we talked about this in a previous episode of Strange New Worlds where Kirk was on the Enterprise and him and Uhura had this whole adventure together. And I complained about it in that case because the character he should have been having an adventure with was La'an, because they
Oh,
still had
without a doubt.
unresolved tension. And they
Yeah.
were just doing this in order to be able to put him, Uhura, and Spock together in like a triangle and say, like, you see, these are the characters that are going to be together. And I'm like, ugh. In this one, they did the same thing, but like it worked because there was no other character that they should have been focusing on. Like it was like
Yeah.
kind of like, sure, you can mix and match them. This mixture is an interesting one. It's important to establish like the eventual friendship between Spock and Kirk, and we did a great job with that. The kind of relationship between Scotty and Kirk, where Scotty eventually he will trust Kirk when Kirk keeps pushing more, and Scotty will keep giving until eventually he's like, I literally can't do anymore, and Kirk will listen. And so
Mm.
like to see the beginnings of that and how it started off so shaky of basically Kirk saying, I need more, Scotty not wanting to give it to him. He keeps pushing until eventually it breaks and Scotty gets pissed. It's kind of like, yeah, like this makes sense that this is kind of
Yeah.
like where this would start. And the two of them need to kind of start building a rapport together. So I was very happy with that. I thought the idea of focusing on the Farragut and that crew while still having like an ongoing plot in Enterprise with them trying to break out, a lot of good A plot, B plot, worked really well. The kind of strange left turn at the end of kind of like the surprise thing of like, oops, they're human, really didn't work for me. Like that was the
Yeah.
part of the episode
Yeah.
that was like, once again, we give the engineer the main, like the emotional speech. But even without that, like there's a thing of kind of like, it shouldn't matter more to us that they're human. And like,
No.
and the fact that it does is weird. And the fact that the show thinks it does is weird. And I don't like
Yes.
it.
Without a doubt, that quote unquote twist was terrible. I didn't work for me. It kind of ruined what I felt was a really interesting, good episode. Like, why not just have it be a being? Like, if this was another Star Trek show, it would just have been some kind of being that eventually goes away, and they're like, that was interesting. Like that. That's fine. You don't have to, I think, necessarily solve this mystery in order for this episode to have been a good one. So yeah, I really didn't like the ending either. I don't think it worked. And at the end of the day, it kind of fell flat, which was a very promising episode that just didn't deliver.
Yeah, and I think like you could have had that shift and still have been like, oh, they were humans, but like don't kill the whole thing. Just like you escape and they escape, and then but that one guy is dead as human. And you're like, what? And then like there's the open mystery of like maybe we'll
Yeah,
see them again, sort of thing.
yeah,
It's similar to like the original Batman movies kept killing their villains at the end. I'm like, stop, just
yeah,
stop. Like
yeah,
we might want to see that's like that again, and like you can really, instead of it being like a shift in the fifth act of an episode, it can be like a whole interesting idea that you can explore a little bit more, but not so much.
yeah, but not so much.
Not so much. Episode 7. What is Starfleet? So you run a movie podcast that's been going on for a very long time. Have you had to sit through a lot of really bad documentaries in your time?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like too many, honestly, to count.
Hmm. I remember going on your podcast at one point, and we talked about it's like a documentary called, I think it was like The Last Man on the Moon, and
Yeah,
I raged against that of like just hating how that documentary was so bad. And it's like one of those documentaries where like the guy drives down a road and gets out and talks to his daughter, and they're like, where should we sit? Like, let's sit on the swing. I'm like, you're expecting me to like assume that this just happened spontaneously when I know that the camera crew is there. They were there already. They watched you approach. So you all arrived together. Then you got him to go in a car, drive down the road, and come back. And so when they said they were doing a documentary episode of Star Trek. I'm like, this is going to be really annoying for me. Strangely enough, I actually really enjoyed this episode. I don't know how
Oh
you felt
wow,
about
okay.
it, but
I didn't think that's where you were going
yeah,
with your spiel. Yeah.
but I think the reason why I liked it so much is because it felt like a bad documentary. Like it felt like a person who came in, exactly who the character is. They came in gunning, like guns blazing, with an obvious idea of what they thought their documentary was going to be, and they probed and they pushed, so they got the exact answers they want. This is specifically Erica's brother, who came in obviously with a bone to pick against Starfleet. And then throughout the course of the documentary, he has to shift his narrative to be basically about him and him recognizing that he did have an agenda and that what he was pushing may not actually be the truth. And so I really enjoy that. Like it felt like they actually went out of their way to make a flawed documentary into an episode that didn't feel like an accident. It felt like it was baked into the actual core of what the episode was about.
Yeah, I liked the general premise overall, but
Mm-hmm.
I really wasn't a huge fan of the episode. I think what you're kind of describing is kind of the exception. Like I liked kind of the lesson being learned, even the approach to it, and like the overall structure of how they got there. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
on board for all of that. I just found the documentary style annoying,
Mm.
and still feeling a little out of place. Like I think it's because every show on television now seems to do one of these at some point in time. It's kind of like a musical theater episode where it's
Yeah,
just
I
like
blame Community season 2.
yeah, everyone has to have one of these. Like, and
Yep.
it's just, I don't think it always works. What I did like about it was also this idea of just because Starfleet is kind of this beacon of hope, and the world is such a better place than it is like it being like our future, doesn't mean you're not going to have critics of that,
Mm-hmm.
and people who criticize it. And I like when Star Trek does that, where someone comes in with their own agenda and idea of what Starfleet is, and what the Federation is. And so I think that did work. This is not as egregiously bad to me as the first episode of this kind of group
Yeah.
of episodes. But yeah, I still think for me it was middle ground, not doing anything too offensive for me, but I just kind of was like, okay, I'm ready to move on from this.
That's fair. Like, I think I really appreciated the amount of dedication they put into the documentary style of like, other than I think one shot, the rest of them, I'm like, I can clearly see how this is, like, how this shot was captured. Like, it's either via the console cameras or it's via the kind of the overarching cameras that are attached to the wall or these kind of
Mm-hmm.
floating drones. And you can see, like, oftentimes you see the character kind of like do like an annoyed glance at the drone or something like that as they're delivering their line. So it was, I think there was a dedication to the documentary style that really worked here for me. And then I did really like the idea, like, yeah, like in the fourth episode, we talked about how annoyingly on the nose this very long speech was that the fake agent, played by Aurora's character, has to give the speech about, like, the importance of stories and generations, all this sort of stuff, and how it falls flat. I think the main kind of speech at the end of this about how, like, Starfleet is the people, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like I think I really liked that because we've talked a lot about how in Star Trek, Starfleet isn't perfect. There's always some evil admiral or some like broken rule or something like that. What makes it something to aspire to are the individuals that within this vast system are still able to flex their moral character and in part change. And I think that
Yeah,
that's the thing to aspire to. And I think they really nailed that. Like that for me, I was like, you get it. Like this is one
yeah,
of those like few moments of like, that for me is the theme behind what makes Star Trek so great. And you
yeah,
really managed to actually say it in a way that
yeah,
was very clear and concise. And I like that.
yeah.
Something I didn't like. Episode 8, 4.5 Vulcans.
Oh, this was just, this was just the worst. I have to. The only thing that could have made this worse is if this came after episode 4. I think that's the only
I
way
think
this would have been
the
so much
1-2
worse.
punch of 4 and 8 back to back would have just like killed you. You wouldn't have made it through.
I would have made it through. I would have texted you and been like, I'm not doing this.
I'm not doing this. We're cancel the show.
I'm
Cancel the show. We're
canceled.
done.
Absolutely not. Under no circumstances. This was just atrociously bad. To me, there's just no, I don't know. There's almost no redeeming qualities. Number one, and number two, I don't. want to. Like, part of me wants to know what went into this as
Hmm.
being a decision, but then another part of me is like, but who cares?
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing that anyone could say to me that would make me say, yeah, no, this is a great idea. Great
No,
job.
as soon as there was a Vulcan episode, I knew this was going to be bad because this show has never managed to get Vulcans right. Like Spock is the
No.
closest. Like I think like, Ethan Peck's doing a really good job as Spock in a lot of cases. Like throughout these episodes, I've been really impressed with him of how he's managed to play this young Spock. That like the emotions are there, and they are mostly suppressed, but they're like
Yeah.
they're poking out just a little bit every so often.
He's another one that he has gotten better.
Yep.
And I've seen this in shows before where certain actors will just get better as the show goes along.
Hmm.
And Ethan Peck's one of those that at the beginning I don't think he was really working for me, but and I don't even think it's like he's growing on me and I'm just getting used to it. I do think he is getting better and improving his
Agreed.
performance. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a hard performance to give. Like Spock, we've talked before, but Vulcans in general are a hard thing to pull off.
Yeah.
And this episode kind of proves that in terms of we have the other characters trying to play Vulcans. Specifically, the actor that plays Pike, I think, is just terrible in this. It's like when he's doing that Vulcan impersonation. Although he does have the only legitimate laugh that they got from me the whole time, and it's after they turn back to humans, and he just like grabs his face. He's like, "I made so many bad decisions," and I'm like, yeah, I feel that. That was the only moment that I got like a legit laugh out of this whole thing. And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "I need to go back before my girlfriend like changes the locks to my quarters." I'm like, "That's yeah, you do."
Yeah, I also I did like that they that they kept referring to him as a half Vulcan. Like that made me
Yes.
chuckle. Um
And him just being very annoyed. It's like Spock, like obviously, like getting increasingly more agitated with. It's like, yes, that is logical.
yeah, exactly. And that did kind of work. But other than that, yeah, I was really not a fan of um this episode at all, especially because considering what episode followed it,
Hmm.
I just felt again such a tone shift, such a jump and a leap. And this to me just felt very much like a cartoon. Like
Yeah.
I was something that didn't really even take itself that seriously.
Like it would
Um,
belong in a Lower Decks. Like this could be like this could have been a fun episode of Lower Decks. Like imagine those characters being turned Vulcan and then it's like
yeah,
that would have been like
yeah.
more enjoyable because that's an actual cartoon.
Yeah, that's a cartoon, and it kind of it does fit to have cartoons um, uh, do these kinds of things. Like
Yeah.
it fits a little bit more for you. So yes, I concur.
Yeah. Just very, very bad. And so I left this episode with like a just like, oh my gosh, okay, there's one more left. I just got to get through this one more episode and then we'll be done. And then I got into episode 9, Terrarium. Immediately, it was like, this is going to be an Eric Ortegas episode. I'm like, okay, that's going to be interesting.
I
And then it
thought
becomes like, finally,
finally,
she's been like, she's had like a B plot devoted to her. And then throughout the course of this whole season, there's been like an ongoing thing about her PTSD after dealing with the Gorn, about like what it felt like for her
Mhm.
to be like, untouchable as a pilot. And then when she went on her first away mission to have that taken away and how like it really impacted her and made her feel scared all over again. And so all of that has like been sprinkled throughout the season. I'm like, this has been good. Like they've been handling this really well. And so when it came time to actually like have a full episode just dedicated to her and her dealing with that, I'm like, I'm down. I'm ready.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
easily for me, episode 9 is the best in the season. I don't know
Oh,
how you
without a
feel about
doubt.
that. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
without a
it's
doubt. By far to me the best
mhm.
episode of the season. Not only just for getting probably the most interesting character, um, and having it be kind of her episode. Everything she's going through
Yeah.
it makes so much sense, and I these episodes, this kind of enemy mine plot from there's a movie that's
Hmm.
basically this, and we've seen this on other Star Treks before. It
Yep.
works every single time. It works, whether it be
I was
Jordy and a
just thinking
Romulan
that.
or like,
Yep.
yeah, it just every time Star Trek does it so perfectly.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant way to do it, and the fact that it was a Gorn, everything that happened there, even the ending, like, to me, felt poetic. Like
Yeah,
it everything they did worked so well. And it's almost not it's just not close to me that this
no.
is the the best episode of this season.
Yeah, like without a doubt. It's, as you said, like it's tried and true ground for Star Trek. They've done it many times. But I still think that there's something like quite unique about this. First of all, Eric Ortega's as a character is unique. Like her response to it reminds me very much of like Mark Watney from The Martian. This kind of like, he's like, ha ha ha, I'm gonna die, sort of like kind of gallows humor way of dealing with things was really enjoyable. It's fun to be with that energy for that extended period of time. It feels dangerous while still feels fun. So which is like a great way to like kind of balance those two things. To have Uhura back on the Enterprise, desperately trying, breaking rules, trying so hard to like save her friend was really great. And I feel like that actress actually, I liked her from the very beginning, but I do feel like she's only gotten better as the seasons have gone along as well. So really enjoyed that. And yeah, making it a Gorn, so it's tying us not just to like some nebulous like the enemy of my enemy sort of thing, like with Geordi and the Romulan, but like a specific like this is the thing that in your head is like the nightmare. This is the thing that took from you the thing that you had gained from going into space in the first place, like a feeling of invulnerability. It took that from you, and now you're being able to like experience an interaction with this character that is for the longest time in the all the seasons of Strange New World has just been a mindless monster, and then we're finally getting back to what we had like the main purpose of Arena back in the day was the idea that it's not just a monster.
Yeah, and it to me it worked really well. Everything to me, everything um, that that they did just worked with
Mm-hmm.
this episode. So yeah, I kind of the to me the rare thing for this show is to me this felt like an episode that was perfect from beginning
Mm-hmm.
to end.
Yeah, it
Like
stuck the
there's
landing.
yeah, it stuck the landing. There's really not much that I would change.
No,
Um, and we've talked about how angry that makes me because it just shows like this
they can
you're
do it.
capable of this. You
Yeah.
clearly can do this. I don't know why you can't do this all the time. So yeah, I thought it was really well done, and it might be my favorite episode of the series,
Yeah,
let alone just the season. It's that good.
like it's certainly in contention. I can think of two others that may come close for me, but like really, like it was just so strong, and I loved them playing each other's games. Like Erica teaching the Gorn chess, and then Gorn teaching this other game, and like how they won each other's games, and they're both like, "How did I? What is this?" And then so that was fun, and then yeah, the ending is just heartbreaking. Like, have you ever seen the original Night of the Living Dead?
No, I don't think so.
It's like, so I won't spoil it, but but the ending of this movie, of this episode, really reminded me of the end of that movie, of the kind of idea like we made it, and then there's just this really sad, unfortunate gut punch of just like, oh yes, right, like we just had this experience where we came together and we realized something, but then when the world came back to us, it's like it wasn't ready, and it's like tragedy struck because of it,
Did,
and
did you ever see the? I think I brought this up on the show before, and I don't think you've seen it. But did you ever see 1985 movie Enemy Mine?
no, but I do remember you brought it up though.
Okay, because it's
Yeah.
pretty much this kind of premise,
Hmm.
and you know it's criticized for their you know it is a slower moving movie, and instead of being action packed, it's very much a character drama. That's basically a you know a sci-fi premise, but in terms of its ending and in terms of everything it's trying to say and everything that's going on, it really does a great job,
Yeah.
and reminds me of this as well. So again, it's one of those things that I think is worth a watch and a visit because I think it does a lot of these concepts really well too.
Maybe a good episode of I Can't Believe It's Not Star Trek.
True, and I think Star Trek has borrowed from these things quite a bit. And again, I think some of the Star Trek sticks the landing on these. Like there's an episode of Enterprise that
Hmm.
also does something
Yep.
like this, and every time that they put you know two enemies together in a situation, Star Trek just is able to nail this without a problem.
Yeah, like to an extent, Darmok and Jalad is also like an
Yeah,
alteration of this kind of this
absolutely.
tale, and the original Arena is also kind of an
Yeah.
augmentation of this tale as well. And I think that's kind of what I really appreciated, like the ending of this, kind of like being able to tie us back to it. It also gives us the potential, like a retcon of the Metron saying like we might have to reset your opinion of the Gorn, and I'm like, does that mean that all of this is going to be forgotten? It's like everything we've encountered is going to be wiped from the collective human memory, and that's the reason why Kirk and Spock have no idea what a Gorn is when they encounter it in Arena. I'm like, who knows? But all I know is that like when we get that last shot of Ortega's like walking out of her quarters and it focuses in on the shelf of all of her memorabilia, and right there is like the piece from the Gorn game that she pretended to eat that she
Mm-hmm.
kept as like, and I'm like, it was powerful, and I do think
Yeah.
that this will go down as probably one of, if not the best episode of this show, and is in the running for the best this kind of episode for Star Trek, despite its like the lofty examples that we've already mentioned.
Yeah, like it probably would. I mean, I think for sure, if we were going to make a list of, you had to pick the best episode of each Star Trek series,
Mm-hmm.
this would be it. And I think it wouldn't feel out of place with the
Yeah.
others. It wouldn't feel like we're just throwing something for the sake of it. It is the type of thing that would go in my category of I would show this to a non-Star Trek fan
Yeah.
and say this is Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
It might even go into that pile for me. So that's the best compliment I can give to this show that continues to disappoint me.
And this is really like, if we view Strange New Worlds as like the perfect show designed to make Mike angry, like this needs to happen. It can't just be all bad, because then you'll just shut down like you did with Discovery. It has to keep giving you the occasional carrot so you'll like perk up a little bit, just so episode 10 will roll around and break your heart again.
That's the thing that I hate about myself is it's enough,
Yep.
like 10 episodes. All I need is 1%. It's 10 episodes, and I just need one of them to be good. It's like being in a horrific relationship, and I just need her to treat me well one day.
Exactly.
And I'm still coming back.
Yeah, she wouldn't return my calls, and it was emotionally abusive. But that one day where she brought me a chocolate bar that was half eaten, but man, it was enough.
Man, what a great gesture. Yeah.
What a great
Just
romantic gesture.
Completely fooling yourself into thinking this is a good idea. That's me and Strange New Worlds right now. They give me one episode in basically 30 episodes, because we got one more left in this season. We know it's not going to be good. So it's like they give me one, and that's enough to be like, well, season 4. We'll see.
So the question is, we've had two season finales for Strange New Worlds so far. It's like the one at the end of season 1 was quite good. We remember, it's like, if you recall, it's the one that was the riff on Balance of Terror.
Oh yes,
and we really enjoyed it, and it was like a nice capper to season 1. And then, but like, it wasn't a cliffhanger. It was like over and done, a wonderful story. We were onto it. Season 2's finale was very much like an intense cliffhanger that was an action movie, and it was like the first 2 acts of an action movie, and then we cut off just before act 3. And I remember feeling like, okay, like, this did the trick in the way that I'm now interested to see how season 3 begins. But I can't call it a good episode because it wasn't even a complete thought. Which one do you think we're going to get when we come back to episode 10, which I believe is called New Civilizations? It's called New
Something
Life
like
and New
that.
Civilizations.
Yeah. I think we'll get more of the season capper. I don't think they'll do 2 cliffhangers in a row. Mainly also because now that we know it's only going 5 seasons, I think season 4 to season 5, that's going to be a cliffhanger.
That would
so
make
I think
sense.
they won't do one here. I think it'll be more of a, we'll just cap off the season with an episode that does not leave on a cliffhanger. That's what.
And I guess the question is, what remains to be capped off? Because when we think about the beginning of this season, we started with a couple of loose ends that we had to tie up. So the one was like the Spock, Chapel, Corby thing. So that is kind of been put to bed, I would say, hopefully. Another one
with this show, you never know.
Yeah. The other one was the documentarian coming aboard, which we've already like kind of capped off. The other one was the new nurse character who is now dead and buried. Wild. And then the other big thing is the dormant Gorn DNA in like Pike's partner, who, like, other than that one episode where it did resurface, we haven't really dealt with that in any meaningful way. What do you think? You think that's going to be our main plot thrust for the last episode?
I think it'll have something to do with her and Pike.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that will be somewhat involved in some way, because I would imagine you can't necessarily leave that open again. I just from the way this show's been going, I feel like we're not going to get a major character death. So I guess this engineer is going to be sticking around. So I think it might be much more of a just button on the season. So I think the only unresolved issue that I feel like they'll tackle is Pike and his girlfriend or partner or whatever she is. I don't even know her name. That's how poorly they've developed her.
Yeah, it's like
she's just been on the ship too. I don't
just chilling the whole
time. Why
are
you here? But yeah, like I think that's the only aspect that I could see them realistically sort of tying a bow on. And then otherwise, yeah, I feel like it'll feel like much more of a standalone episode. That's my prediction, at least.
Okay, well, we'll see if it comes to fruition. I hope you've all enjoyed this like meandering take on Strange New Worlds as it begins. We got one episode left. It's coming out this Thursday, and I guess we'll be back next week with it. Do you have anything else you'd like to talk to our intrepid listeners about before we let them get on with their day?
Well, just because we're back, you can go to the website of the not-for-profit that we're associated with, soul1arts.ca. So that's SOLONEARTS.ca, soul1arts.ca. And you can go to the podcast tab, and there's a form you can actually fill there to send in your fan questions. So you can fill out the form under the podcast tab. You just have to select, like, one of the questions is which podcast, because there are several. You just select our podcast, and now it's a quick, easy way for you to send in fan questions.
Nice.
Soul1arts.ca. That's SOLONEARTS.ca. Just go to the podcast tabs. It should be under projects. You'll find it. Or you could just / podcasts, and it will be there. But you can definitely send us fan questions there. We will 100% get them there, because we're not as active on socials and other areas as we'd like to be. But soul1arts.ca. Send in your fan questions. We're back to weekly. I don't know what we're doing, Tyler, after the season finale of Strange New Worlds when we're finally free.
It's a new frontier.
We'll be having fun finally. So we'll look forward to that.
Cool. Well, in that case, Mike, live long and prosper.
Tyler, peace and long life. Thank you for listening to You Had Me at Skip It, a Soul One Arts Inc. podcast. This podcast is produced by Mike Shepard and Austin Spinner Summer. It is a project of Soul One Arts Inc. To learn more about Soul One and all the great work that Soul One is doing in the arts community, especially in film, theater, and other performing arts, visit soul1arts.ca. You can contribute to this podcast by visiting soul1arts.ca and going to the podcast tab. You'll find all the information on You Had Me at Skip It and how you can get your questions read on air each week. Thank you again for listening.